Hey, you guys. Hello, women, men, everybody, children. My name is Dr. Cheryl Meyer. Today we're going to talk deep about spiritual alchemy, raising your spiritual consciousness, not just to be spiritual, but to understand, like, we are souls in a human body. And I was reading this book, and just the beginning of it, and I really want to teach you from these different spiritual disciplines, these different, let's say, spiritual philosophies. Look, there's the sun. Because we're all made from the same God, but you don't have to believe that. I always say I welcome all religions. I'm a psychologist in my day job, but I welcome all religions so that you can learn things from all of my videos and give them to your friends of different religions. And so always the first thing I say is just practice being really present, because learning how to be present is a discipline, and it will help you with everything. Like, if you know how to be deeply present, then when people trigger you with psychological stuff, or circumstances around you are happening that you can't control, that your egotism always wants to go into control and try to manage it and try to do what it knows how to do, and it gets you into this mechanical mindset. This is one of the things I was going to talk to you about. All right. So let me start with this just as a basis. All right. I'm not doing a book review, so don't worry about that. You don't have to worry about anything. Let's just be present and go deep into learning. So I was reading this book from the 1500s, The Interior Castle by St.Teresa of Avila. All right. And we're going to take from her example, because since it was written in the 1500s, we can use I could read straight from, her book. Well, but I'm not going to read from it right now. She said she had a vision of your soul, okay? Your soul being inside of you. If you think of what Jesus said, like, seek first the kingdom of God, and he also said the kingdom of God is within you. And when he was speaking to people, he said, you are the light of the world. And he also said, I am the light of the world. And so with true spiritual path, there are often a lot of paradoxes and deep, seemingly contradictory things that they go together. Like, you are chosen, he says, like, you did not choose me, I chose you. But you also do choose. You choose to embrace a spiritual path and embrace the Holy Spirit, if you follow that, to yield yourself, to be disciplined, to face death of your egotism, of your outer self, of your flesh, don't worry if you don't understand what I'm saying. Like, some people will understand, and some people will understand on a deeper level, right? So let's go back to this simple idea of your soul being like a castle. She said it's like a crystal, like a diamond, like here's so it's like, how a diamond has many facets. But she said in the center of this castle is God, shining bright like the sun, right? But so she was a Carmelite nun, right? And a contemporary of St. John of the Cross, who wrote the Ascent to Mount Carmel and the Dark Night of the Soul. He's the one that pretty much coined that term. I mean, I know that they talked about it in all sorts of other religions for the last 4,000, 5,000 years or more, I don't know, and Taoism and stuff like that. Anyway, the thing that I was getting so worked up about that I wanted to share with you guys was she was describing it like, here is this beautiful divine love, God, in the center, right? Shining. And yet she said most people, because she saw this in a vision, live not in next to this inner chamber, not even really knowing that they have that. They live in the exterior courts. Like if you lived outside of the court of a castle, hanging out with the reptiles, she said. She could see them. They were like reptiles, and becoming like them, like the reptiles that you see on the she just saw lizards and reptiles on the outside of the courts. You're not even in any part of the castle. Now, when you choose to start seeking a spiritual life, you go into the castle. But this is the thing that I was like, wait, I have to warn everybody about this, and it's not funny at all. It's just, she was saying, the enemy of our souls. There's a verse that says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And I know this will seem like a sci-fi movie, when I'm talking about this. But the enemy, she said, will put enemies, whatever you want to call them, more of the reptiles or whatever, the dark spirits or whatever, in each room of the castle on your way. And so she described it like this path where you're learning how to get to the interior. It's called the interior castle, right? You're learning how to get to the interior castle. But every room or chamber you enter in, there's a possibility of failure. And it's like, my ex, I was married to for a long time, made video games. So I know a lot about video games. Like, he works for a very big video game company. And so it is kind of like how they made video games. Now, they made video games just like the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell, if you think of like Star Wars, how there's first the hero is called, like Luke is called, and then there's a refusal of the call, and he doesn't want to go, and then his aunt and uncle are like burned up by the enemies, by the dark, by Darth Vader and all his people. I forgot what they're called, the Empire, and they're burnt up by them because they're looking for the plans in the R2 unit, And then Luke's like, sure, I'll go to Obi-Wan. I'll go with you, Obi-Wan, and we'll go, rescue the princess and get the plans and defeat the Death Star and all that stuff. Be the heroes, be the good guys. And we are called to be valiant. And so, we can think that, that's what I was going to say. In a video game, there's all these obstacles, and then you get a boss, and it's like, that was a pretty big boss just now in my life, right? You can look at, on the spiritual path, video games are made after reality. The hero's journey is made after reality. What they were conveying in that movie, that, the first Star Wars, they thought was gonna, wasn't gonna do well at all. They thought people were not gonna like it. But it was talking about these eternal truths on our spiritual path. So of course we resonate, And so if you know of Maurice Nicole, I read the book, The New Man, on this. And what him and Gurdjieff and the Fourth Way people talk about is that you do things mechanically. You can just do things on automatic. Like, if you go into more your reptilian brain, your fear brain, then instead of being courageous and going towards this light in this interior castle and facing things and letting go of things and whatever, then you just give in to the enemies. C.S. Lewis does a really good job of showing how this happens to all of us in the book silver chair, because there's this woman that's a witch, and she just says, you know, and she looks like this grand princess, but she's pretending, right? I heard this Native American shaman, a quote about him. He said, "I never saw an ugly witch." You know, they all present as beautiful. So C.S. Lewis has it in the silver chair, where she's like, there is no Aslan, there is no sun. You know, you're just making up, because she has them in this underground lair. And they just, as soon as they agree with her, they feel such this sense of relief. You know, she's strumming on this thing and trying to lull them into this hypnotism so she can brainwash them and control them and stuff. And there's such a relief as soon as they agree with her, because there's this scent in the air that's pulling them in, you know. And finally, this character named Puddleglum, like, he steps on the fire, even though it's burning his feet. You know, he has webbed feet. He's a marsh wiggle. Anyway, even though it hurts him, I think it's before that, he says, I'm standing for Aslan, even if there is no Aslan. I'm standing for the real sun. There is a sun in the sky. There is an overland, you know. Even if you say there isn't, even if there isn't, you know, because our pretend world licks your world hollow. I love it. I love it. It's such a valiant, I mean, I could cry almost every time I read that part. But what I was going to say is, Maurice Nicole and them talk about how we act mechanically. You have a psychological brain and a spiritual brain and an instinctual, emotional brain. I don't remember how he breaks those up, but you have these different centers. He calls them different centers in you, and they'll all present to you like I. And my video about your true identity, getting your true identity, I read something really deep about that. So I recommend watching that whole thing over and over again till you understand, because it's really important for you. This is why I got so mad when I was reading that book, when I was reading the beginning of this book, and I was listening to it too. I will put all of the links to this. I have it in German and in English and in Spanish, the original Spanish, on PDF, and also you can listen to the whole thing on YouTube, and you can listen on high speed. So it takes 7 hours, I think, but it would just take 3.5 or so if you listen on two times. And you're welcome to always do that on my videos, because sometimes I speak slow, sometimes not. But Maurice Nicole says all of these centers present as I's. So they say, I am Cheryl, I am Dave, I am whatever your name is, I am Matthew, I am Pearson, you know, I am. And so it's like, and they don't communicate with each other. And so he says some part of you will mechanically like promise to someone, oh sure, I will be there. But then your emotional, your fears come in, and your intellect comes in, and that could have just been instinctual, you know, like out of fear-based. And they're like, I'm not going there. And they present like, no, we are the I's, and you don't need to go there, and don't go there. And so and the way I describe it, it's like if one part of you says, I am hungry, and another part says, I want to go to sleep, and the other part says, I need to go to work, and the other part says, oh no, I need to pick up my kids from school, and the other part says, I need to take some time out to pray because I am a soul, and it's important that I feed my soul, you know. Then it's important to really look at who are all these I's. Now the world will give you all these I's too, and they'll be like, I need to put on more makeup, I need to do things to bolster people liking me and my physical appearance, and I need to please these certain people or make more money so that people will think I'm important, or get a different car, or whatever it is. All of those will present as your I, and they are not your I. That's why I was saying at the beginning, it's like the trump card or the joker card in all of this. You know, when you're playing cards and you have the ace of spades, let's say, or, you know, if hearts are trump and you have hearts, you can play them down and you win that hand, you win. or I have a joker, that beats all. This is why I constantly am teaching presence, no matter how many skills and tools and knowledge and wisdom that I'm teaching you. I'm constantly teaching you how to be present, because if you're present and you know yourself as the observer of all these eyes, then you can stand back from them and like, the mind is getting triggered right now. The emotions are getting provoked right now by that. The old childhood wound, the entitled child that wants to insist that everybody has to read our mind and heal and make up for everything we missed as a child. Understand our deep wounds that our parents gave us from their unconsciousness and from their parents' unconsciousness, and fill us up in that area. And I'm going to be enraged and mad at you if you don't do that. You see, that's the entitled inner child. You don't want the entitled inner child to run your life, right? You don't, do you? The entitled inner child wants to run your life, believe me, And so, don't believe me, watch, see what's going on next time you get triggered, See what is that resistance to being quiet, to putting down my phone, or to putting down a drink, to putting down any kind of substance, anything you're using to make yourself high in the moment. I do want to make a video. I printed something out this morning with the word fast on it. And I have an acronym for fast. It was something like fortitude and attuning, and strengthening your soul. Strengthening, and I'll do it later. Strengthening to your soul or something like that. I can't remember, but it's like that. But it's basically, I have these ideas of understanding from fasting. When you fast from things, they build up this spiritual muscle in you. They build up a muscle in you so that when you are totally hooked into one of your identities, one of these eyes that's presenting as your true eye, that when you practice fasting, let's say you practice fasting 1 day a week, that's 1/7 of your week. That's 1 day a week. You're building that muscle. And believe it or not, that muscle comes into play when you're like, okay, I want to put my phone down, or I'm highly triggered by this situation, or, I have someone that I love deeply that's in some kind of health crisis and I don't know what's going to happen about it. But it's like, if I was so caught up in that, I wouldn't take the time to make this for you guys. And so fasting once a week, or fasting, according to a plan, not according to just, I feel like fasting right now because I want God to give me all these spiritual insights. There is a time for that, but it's not to chase after consolations and just say, you can see Solomon for an example of that. Not Solomon, King Saul. Like, he wasn't hearing from God, so he just started fasting, and then he went to a fortune teller and all these things. That's a misuse of that, right? But if you do practice disciplines, just even if you practice fasting from social media for 1 day a week or something like that, or TV and all social media or whatever, or if you go 30 days from that helps you get a baseline of how addicted you were and how much you were using that. It's very uncomfortable at first, but once you learn how to just be present in the uncomfortableness, then you're not worried about it. Then when you're asked to put something down in your own, because a higher consciousness from a higher center of your being says, hey, let's put this down, then you're ready to do that. And I read all about that. I read hours and hours in the book called The New Man, which it goes into that. That's on my YouTube channel in a playlist, right? And so what I'm teaching you about this is, and I also read the book, The Princess and the Kurdi, The Princess and the Goblin and the Princess and the Kurdi. And so go to those playlists, because when you read The Princess and the Kurdi, which is the second one, the whole book is about Kurti having this special spiritual ability where he can shake the hands of different people and see what kind of animal they're becoming, or if they're becoming a human. Some animal, Lena, that was with him, he shook her hand and she was this grotesque animal, but she had a human hand. She was becoming a human. And this is just in a fiction story, but it's to show you, the whole thing was him to go to serve the king, because the king was under a spell and he couldn't rule the kingdom because all of these reptiles were trying to take over his life, and they had him in a deep sleep and they kept giving him poison and bad medicine. The whole book is about your spiritual interior life. The whole book is like you're reading this, but you're reading it in a fiction story. And so I look like an idiot, and I don't mind looking like an idiot, but I look like an idiot as here's this doctor of psychology reading fairy stories on her YouTube channel, or on her Instagram or wherever in her social media. And even one of my friends, that doesn't necessarily, I love her, and she's like, second degree black belt, so she's very disciplined in other areas of her life, and I learned so much from her. But she didn't understand. She's like, I don't think some people are getting those books. Like, why are you reading some of those books on your channel? You're turning people away from your channel. And, or why are you adding those songs or whatever? And it's like, because I think it's important for us to be well-rounded. And I think we need to hear these truths from different places, not just someone preaching to you or teaching you or saying this is how it is. Sometimes we have subconscious blocks. We have blocks. And when we hear it in a story, like Jesus spoke in parables, or we get it in an image, like Teresa of Avila, St. Teresa of Avila, doctor of the church. They made her a doctor. I'm like, yes, woman doctor. I think she was the first woman doctor. In the 1600s, they declared her. And she's just like, I'm so not learned. You can learn this from other people. But because she wasn't pretentious, she just wrote what she saw, and she saw so deeply and so profoundly. And so what I was going to say is that, we can learn from her, her image that she got of this interior castle with this bright shining sun. But she says, another nun, another sister that she trusts, that she knows, got an image one time when she's praying. Now these people are praying like 8 hours a day. So don't put them down, because what Evelyn Underhill says in her book Mysticism that I'm reading here on my channel is that these people are like pioneers in a new land. Like if you spend 8 hours a day, I know some kid that was practicing like 3 hours a day playing piano, and he could play Rachmaninoff, and he was like 11 years old and was like going all off on the piano. Like Elliot could play Rachmaninoff, but it was just beautiful. And so it's like, I encourage you not to just write off and roll your eyes. I know someone that rolled his eyes at the Native American Christian shaman I went and met with for 3 days, this guy named Red Elk, because on the outside he just looked like this guy in a trailer house without water, with 7 chihuahuas. Like it looked like a giant mess, but he worked every day to be present in his spiritual world and knew what was important. And yeah, he was imbalanced in other areas of his life, but he had deep truths to teach me, and I respect that he took the time, just like I respected my friend that she took the time to have the discipline to be like a 3rd degree black belt, and anyway, so Teresa of Avila saw from another nun, another sister had seen, and I won't make this much longer, she saw that anyone that's living in a mortal sin, and you can look up what those are, but to sin just means to miss the mark. To miss the mark of true love. All we're aiming for is true love. We're learning how to love, align ourselves with love. That's what the word fast that I came up with was, alignment and attunement. You're tuning to love so that you're building up this muscle so that you can be like a warrior and a hero, because the world definitely needs a heroes. I'm telling you for sure right now, the world needs people that will wake up to these deep inner truths that other people run away from and only live on the outer court. And she said, Teresa of Avila said, one other thing she said is that these people are like a monk taught her this, a father or something, said that he got a vision that these are like palsied people, like lame, lame to the, it's like if they said, oh, that's junk DNA, and you have, 80% of you, they think it's junk DNA. It's like, no, it can be lit up and activated. This is spiritual alchemy. What if all of those parts of yourself could be lit up? And like, what if we had the capacity for telepathy, for walking on water, for giving up the bread to the divine and him multiplying it like Jesus did with the fish? He said, greater things will you do than I did, and he raised the dead. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, she was talking about this monk who saw a brother who saw that all these people were like lame in their life, but they looked like, because they're doing all these things that the reptiles do, they look like they're very active in their life. You can be running around, like people who follow a certain career path, and when they get to like 50 or something, they're like, what was I doing? What have I been doing with my whole life? Now, if you're lucky enough, if you're alive right now, I always say, not lucky, you're blessed, whatever you want to call it. I always say, if you're alive right now, then that's the start. That's the starting point. Like, don't beat yourself up and regret, but really look deeply and understand that you're alive right now still for a reason, because you have a chance to turn. And so those people are like, I just wasted my whole life, I see that so much. Or it's like if you were in an abusive relationship and you gave so many years trying to bring love to that person and heal them, and in that same old pattern like childhood, where you're subconsciously trying to heal your broken parents that don't want to be healed, so that because you still see yourself as a child, and you're subconsciously locked in this pattern till you are freed and get out. It's for freedom that Christ has set you free. Be free indeed. You will know the truth by living according to the truth, by being a hero in the truth, and the truth will set you free, right? So instead of, just let some of that sink in, right? Instead of not realizing you are a soul, you are like Pierre Tilliard, his last name is Tilliard, I think. But he said, we're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a physical experience, right? And when you get that backwards, you're living your life a whole completely different way. Like I told you, the vision I had, where I was running this way, and everybody else, or not everybody, all these people were running this way. And I was like that. I was like, where are you going? I'm not going that way. I know that now. But I mean, ask God, please help me never to be deceived again and seduced back to that way. But I was just like, where are you going? I don't understand what you see that's of value over there, now it's going to be a lonely path for a while. That's why I talk about that in a 1-minute song by Howard Jones. A lonely path, an uphill climb. You can look for that reel and watch that. Watch that again and again, because it teaches you what you're going to have to face, so you can steel up. Like, you got to bear up to have fortitude. You got to be ready for these things, or you'll just crumble. It's like what Jesus said about the seed that's just planted, it doesn't have deep roots. And so when temptation comes, when other people go, oh no, hey, we're going to go this way, and you're not cool unless you go this way, then you'll just, like, if you don't have deep roots, you'll head with them and you'll lose everything. You'll lose all of that God put in you. The divine made you in his image and likeness. His, her, God is beyond his or her, right? So anyway, Teresa of Avila talked to this woman, and she saw a vision that when someone was in a mortal sin, it's like they have this veil of darkness wrapped around them, and the light doesn't go away, but they don't see the light in their inner castle, and they're turned away from it, and they make fun of other people, because they're wrapped in a shroud of darkness. They're siding with the enemy of our souls, who a mystic was describing to me the other day. He was emailing me and stuff. Well, we were talking on a different platform, actually. And he was talking about how the devil, if you understand, C.S. Lewis says the devil would love for us to think that he doesn't exist, right? But as the divine created us and created angels, this fallen angel that wanted his own path had to shroud himself in darkness in order to block out the light, and so wants to shroud us in that, and fights dirty and doesn't care how he fights below the belt. And so we'll use all kinds of lies and manipulation. And we who try to be good, even if we're in mortal sin or whatever, we try, all of us, I don't know people that don't actually try to be good. Even the ones that are stepping on you or ghosting you or whatever, they think they're doing it because one of the eyes in the different centers is going, oh, well, this person, deserves to be ghosted, or they don't deserve an explanation, or just walk away. That's the best way to protect yourself, or whatever it is. I'm not saying that's the worst sin in the world. My take on that. Watch my video on From Ghosted to Enlightened, and you can understand how to heal from that, because it's a deep wound. And I'll say one other thing about that is, it's as deep as you are attached to it. And so, like, one of my clients, I was telling this person, I was like, yeah, okay, it might seem like you're going to die of rejection. And, but lo and behold, when you wake up in the morning, you're like, how did I live, after sobbing all night and waking up and heaving and sobbing night after night after night, perhaps, depending on how much it brought up these old wounds that got so deep in you as a child, that person just brought out of you and provoked. It's better to be present with all that and know that you are not all those feelings, but they got to be cleaned out so you're not led by them all the time to run away from relationships because you're so much in fear, because you're avoiding those dark feelings that are underneath, and instead you're trying to please people all the time so that they won't ghost you or won't abandon you or reject you. That keeps you going on that path. This makes you so much stronger that you become invincible to go on this path. And so she said that she's like, pray for people in mortal sin, pray deeply, because it's so sad how much they're cut off from that light. And she said, if anyone could see the harm it does to your soul, you would face so many kinds of torment, of standing up for the good, standing up for what's truly loving, letting go of dying to yourself in those old centers to save your soul from that. That's why I was getting so mad. I was like, no, I don't want the enemy to have dominion over any of us. I want to equip me and you, all of us, so that it doesn't happen. All right, I'll wrap this up for now because I've said a lot, but this is all about spiritual alchemy. You need a certain amount of heat in the fire in order to get the water to boil. If you just keep it on this low temperature, it never boils. You never become this higher. You don't turn from lead to gold. What you really are, you're gold, but you'll never know that unless you let it burn. I wish you so much love.